Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Top Cyber Pro podcast. I'm Jim West, founder and CEO of TopCyberPro.com, and we have another great guest today. And I'm just going to do, how I always do this, guys. I'm going to turn it immediately over to my guests. They can introduce themselves. And this person is a cybersecurity superwoman, and you're about to quickly find out why. So, without further ado, Desiree.
Hi, well, thank you so much, Jim, for having me on today. It's very exciting to talk to you about a topic that I love, which is cybersecurity. I got into cyber now almost 20 years ago. Seems like a lifetime, but I still feel like there's a lifetime of it left to go. So it's very exciting. And that's really what led me here was excitement, was the challenge, the discovery, wanting to know the answer, like figuring something out. That's
Yep.
very much my personality. I like to get to the bottom of things, basically, get me the facts. How does this work? Why does it work this way? What are the countermeasures? All that stuff, which cybersecurity is filled with.
Yes.
But what I have learned is you may never get to the bottom of it.
It's never ending, right? It's like the ocean. The waves just keep coming in, whether it's bad things like, hacks, attacks, breaches, or evolving emerging technologies. Because, you mentioned across 20 years, so much has changed. Even within 2, 3 years, we've seen just a massive explosion of artificial intelligence. We have quantum computing that is in existence, but not yet general purpose yet. But we're on the cusp of that being another very disruptive technology that's going to disrupt every market and every industry. I want to kind of go back to I mentioned you wear a lot of hats in your career, so if you wouldn't mind kind of stepping us through some of the I guess the areas of expertise, because you have a lot of areas of expertise and it's a very impressive skill set and knowledge base that you have. You mind kind of stepping anyone watching kind of like the different hats you've worn or wear?
Okay, sure. Well, I think the most important part of what has created this path that I've taken has been education. Because cybersecurity is constantly changing, you have to constantly learn and grow and add to that knowledge and relearn things because if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
I'd say that has been the part of my background that keeps evolving and will continue to evolve. That is something I do regularly. I'm always training.
Mhm.
I'm always looking for, a webinar or some piece of information that I didn't have before to add to my knowledge that I can use in my toolkit. And then from that, what I've learned to do is evolve, not staying the same. I hate stagnation. So
Mhm.
it doesn't work for me, which makes a consulting a great career for me because I'm solving problems. I'm working in different environments all of the time with different people, different problem sets, but I still have to figure out how to get across the street or wherever we're trying
Yeah.
to go. And so that has enabled me to keep learning. So for instance, we all know, I mean, 20 years ago, we weren't talking about the cloud so much.
Yeah.
And everything changed. Everything was on-prem then. And it was one world on-prem where you had to, have hands-on networking experience. And you had to know how to do everything by hand. And then when things transitioned to the cloud, it was like almost knocked you off your feet. Like, well,
Yeah.
what's happening here? We don't know that world. It's a different world. So I had to start learning cloud. I had to start learning how to migrate to the cloud. Infrastructure is code. And so you have to learn how to do the things you once did on-prem, but now in a virtual environment. I remember the first time I had to do business continuity, disaster recovery planning. And, we were looking at our prior plan and it's all about, where are the exits and how do we get people out of the building? And, if the fire's over here, where are the fire extinguishers, that kind of stuff. And then you start thinking about it in the cloud and suddenly that's obsolete. That no longer applies. It's very different now in the cloud. Now it's, where are our backups? Where's our availability zones? That kind of thing you're looking for, location, 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 but very different. And while, people are obviously still a priority, they're your main area of importance, you're not trying to evacuate them any longer. You're just trying to determine who's in what location and who may or may not lose access to the network. So things changed a lot with the evolution of cloud. And so I had to keep learning. As I said, being someone who continues to add to your knowledge will enable you to continue to grow in this environment. And is optimal. That is the number one thing. Learning different skill sets, incident response, digital forensics, those are my two loves, I'd say. Those are probably the areas I embrace the most because they are constant. They're constant whether you're on-prem or in the cloud. You still need to know how to recover. You still need to know how to capture a forensic image. You need to know how to do it regardless of what location you're in. And it's important because it's going to prevent you from losing everything. I mean, when you're working with clients, it doesn't matter so much that you got breached, but what will matter is how long did it take you to recover from the breach? Because let's face it, threat actors are real
Mhm.
and they are always working. Anyone with an EDR system knows firsthand they're always working. You're wondering, what's this suspicious activity? Every day you're seeing something happening in your environment, something that may be suspicious, may not be suspicious, or how did that happen? Or who's pinging me from over here? You're looking at all of these different things that are happening. And of course, a lot of them are unknown and you have no idea, but you will see very suspicious, very real threats happening to your environment. And so knowing how to deal with those things are imperative to anyone working and continuing to work in cybersecurity for an extended period of time.
And that's a lot of ground that Desiree just covered. But the key thing she mentioned more than once that I absolutely love, and I advocated, if you're a current cybersecurity professional, you always have to keep the edge of your blade sharp as far as your knowledge. And I call it like I consider myself a perpetual student. You're always going to be learning. There's always something new to learn. You mentioned webinars. I'm a big fan of webinars. I'm a big fan of. There's so many training courses to take online that are absolutely free, and other educational platforms that are low cost to no cost, and they give you credly badges. Not just the great training you get and the knowledge and information you get, but it gets you sometimes digital credly badges and things that you can put on your resume, put on your LinkedIn profile, and so forth. So I absolutely love that whole endless pursuit of knowledge. I really like that, Desiree. One of the other hats you've worn is a blockchain architect. And, a lot of folks, that hear the terms fintech and the blockchain and cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin and Ethereum and all the meme coins, which is all the
Mhm.
rage these days. Can we just give like maybe a quick like blockchain 101 for someone that's brand new to that term? And they're just, a lot of folks are fearful of things they don't know, right? But if you could just give us a quick, what is the blockchain and how is it not just cryptocurrencies, but what are the utilities of blockchain for other potential uses in our future?
Yes, so blockchain, I see as a very forward-thinking measure, a very forward-thinking architecture, I should say. Because of the way that it's designed, it's naturally secure, which is the path that we're all going down. I mean, at its most basic point, really, it has the similar layers of anything else we're constructing. You're going to be starting with your hardware layer. Next, you have the data layer, of course, going on to the network layer and then the consensus layer, and lastly, the application layer. But these are, for the most part, things that people are familiar with. But with blockchain, something that we have that we don't necessarily have in any other architecture, I'd say by design, is that there's no single point of entry or origin, or so you're not limited as far as you're not as susceptible to someone accessing your environment. It's like a mesh architecture that is very protected, um, where each layer is built securely. And then, of course, you apply security on top of each of those layers. But as far as you being able to design something that is structurally sound, where you have you have repudiate or non-repudiation with any information that is flowing that is being transferred. So you always know it's verified where it came from, who
Mhm.
it's going to, your point of origin. It's clear and it's concise and it's consistent. And that's why with financial institutions, you see so many of them going to a blockchain architecture because it's already verifying every transaction that is taking place, which
Yes.
we don't have in our other area in
Yeah.
cloud. We don't have that.
A lot of folks
Um,
get fearful because of all those. There's been a few breaches into the, let's say, the subsystems is the general term I'll call it, where it's not
mhm.
necessarily breaching the blockchain security measures, but it's a subsystem that it's, reliant on for whether it's for multi-factor authentication or some other means by which some of these breaches have happened. And a lot of folks that don't understand that fully assume that it's weaknesses in the blockchain. So what would be something that you would explain to someone about when they hear about different cryptocurrencies being breached or attacked? What would be something you would say to the folks that think that it's blockchain is not secure?
I would say most of our insecurities will lie in the software we're using.
Mhm.
So even with blockchain, we still use software in our infrastructure. And that's why something like a secure software development lifecycle is so important, and implementing secure development lifecycle in our process. So when you're thinking that the blockchain itself is insecure, it's probably not. But you always have to go back to what obviously you're going to look at lessons learned in a process, but you want to look at what is the term I'm looking for? It's you I don't want to say it's not the payload, but you want to look at your oh gosh, I forgot the word I'm trying to use, but specifically, ultimately, you want to know where did the issue come from?
Mhm.
And so the
The
root
root
cause,
cause.
that's what I'm trying to say. You want to
Yeah.
find your root cause.
Mhm.
And so you can't just look at, oh, this was a blockchain issue as a whole, because there's going to be a specific attack path that whatever issue occurred that threat actor took. And what I've seen in my experience, it's usually software related. It's
Yeah.
not the actual blockchain structure where the attack occurred. And so again, with that, that comes from the security that we're adding to the blockchain structure itself, or from the application that we are using with the blockchain. And so with that application, there are vulnerabilities.
Mhm.
And from that software, whatever it is, we have to learn to secure that area.
Mhm. Earlier, you mentioned the whole about the authenticity and the verification measures that are built in a blockchain, and some discussions I've had with some other professionals. I think like non-fungible tokens, NFTs, kind of got a bad start because it kind of became one of those gold rushes where people, there's a lot of scams surrounding it. But the utility of what an NFT could be on a blockchain, I know that there's a lot of high luxury designers that have started their own programs trying to, see how they can leverage NFTs for their real world products. And I know Meta with their metaverse and a couple other virtual world platforms, augmented reality platforms are still yet to take a massive, I guess, reach in the general public. But I do believe that blockchain has a lot of utility for authenticity as we come into a world where AI has got deep fakes and it can mimic human voices and we don't know what to trust. And as with COVID kind of having us all kind of be sheltered at home for so long, I think people started craving having authenticity or having real connections, right? And that's why like live streaming took off, podcasts have really taken off in the past few years because people want to feel more connected. And then now that we don't know what we can trust, whether it's the news, deep fakes, etc., and AI is making things, making virtual things seem real. I think with NFTs, they may have to rebrand, but I believe that blockchain will be able to be utilized for things like defeating counterfeiting, like for like luxury brands, shoes even. So when you have a knockoff market, a black, market of knockoffs and counterfeits, you can completely render that obsolete by introducing the blockchain into these products where people actually will care more about the NFT they get with the product than sometimes the product itself because it will become something that's verifiable. Kind of like a certificate of authenticity when you get like a celebrity signed card or memorabilia, it will become a digital authentication method. But I think that it takes a little bit more time NFTs kind of got a bad rap, so it may have to rebrand. But I think blockchain still has a lot of leverage and use beyond cryptocurrencies for, like, again, luxury brands, experiences, concert tickets. Ticketmaster should definitely be looking into this because these kind of experiences, for example, if I went to the last Prince concert, he's gone too soon. But if I went to the last Prince concert and I'm at brunch talking about that, everybody's going to say, no, you wasn't there. But if I could pull up my profile, who carries around their ticket stubs? Nobody. And no one can trust a picture of me at a concert because they'll be like, oh, you photoshopped that. But if I had a verifiable Ticketmaster, NFT or some token on the blockchain that's verifiable by Ticketmaster, it says, yeah, I have a ticket and I was there. But anyhow, not to digress too far from the topic, I really do appreciate you talking a little bit about blockchain. But there's been a lot of other hats you've worn, and one of the hats that is very impressive is global CISO, and kind of being this high-level executive advisor to a lot of different entities, organizations. Could you talk a little bit about kind of what a day in the life of that looks like for someone that's like, hey, if I want to be that one day, what does the day in the life look like for that role?
Okay, well, for starters, working globally, you have to start early in the morning and you may have to work late at night. I live in the Pacific Standard Time zone, so I think we kind of get the end of it because I have clients that are 12 hours apart from me, and that's probably one of the farther extremes. But I'm working globally, it's rarely I'm usually between 8 to 12 hours difference. So that's a full day if you think
Yeah,
of it. I mean, like your day would be done and that your company, your client, they're just getting started. So you have to be very flexible, I would say is one of the number one things. And also with cultural differences, you need to have an awareness of what's going on in that country, in that part of the world. If you can be flexible and you can be culturally aware, I'd say that's step one.
yes,
And then once you have met those challenges head on, you're applying the same information you have with the awareness of where you're applying it. If you're in Europe, you're thinking privacy first with every security decision. Privacy is huge in Europe, as it should be. I wish it was bigger in the United States,
yeah,
but it is so important, especially I feel that way as a security professional because I understand the exposure of our data, our information, and the value that it has. I tell people all the time, I mean, money is not the biggest determining factor. It's data. Data is more valuable than money. The secrets within that data. Data creates so much information. Data is power.
yep,
People can learn everything about you. That's why phishing emails are so superior now to what they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, because people are capturing and have been capturing your data over time. They know more about you and your decision making than you do. They know exactly how to capture your attention, exactly what will get you to click the link, to push the button, to buy or not to buy. Like that's how good they've gotten. And they've done that because of the acquisition of your data. So if we had better privacy, and I feel like I'm going off now, but
no, no,
if we
no,
had
that's a
better
great
privacy,
topic. Yeah.
better privacy in place. I mean, this is something you don't even see it. That's how good it is. You go to the grocery store and you punch in your phone number because you think, oh yeah, I'm getting discounts, I'm getting a point. This is going to work in my favor. But really, they're finding out everything about the purchases you make, about what you eat, about how you eat it, about how often you eat it, about what your family likes and doesn't like. I mean, again, just by something as simple as punching in your phone number at a grocery store because you're a member and you're getting
Mhm.
perks,
Or the gas
um,
pump when you're pumping
or
gas and the
gas,
5 cent
literally
discount a
every single
gallon.
thing.
Yeah.
Yes, every time you sign up for a membership, and everybody has a membership now, and that's why, because it's like a free license to acquire your data.
Yeah.
And then going on, what are they doing with that? So I don't want to go too far off on privacy, but it's one of those things though that I think please be more aware before you click that button, before you agree to allow cookies. I mean, everything that you're doing is being tracked, and that information can easily get into the wrong hands, and it probably already has. But
There's
the
there's
more
so
we
many
do to
cases,
protect
right?
ourselves now, the better.
Social media, people are sharing so much of their lives on social media. Like the old adage, don't post your vacation pictures while you're on vacation because if someone sees that, they can come rob your house. find out where you live, rob your house while you're on vacation, right? But it goes
Exactly.
even beyond that. It goes into, there was a recent report. I think there's 3 million Americans are losing homeowners insurance right now because of several storms that went throughout the East Coast, right? And so there's information where that if you are forthcoming or if you opt in consent by clicking OK and not reading the terms and conditions or not checking the right check boxes when you sign up for a service, etc., you are now subject to that information being used against you, such as, if they find out that you could be adjacent to a flood zone, but then you're just close enough that you can go ahead and drop your homeowner's insurance. There's a lot of things that can really happen to you, and most people think if it doesn't happen to me, it's not of concern to me, and that's kind of, most people's like, well, I don't do anything wrong, I'm not breaking any laws, why do I care about my privacy? It's like, well, then why do you have blinds on your windows? Why do you have a privacy fence? Why do you lock your door? Privacy matters to you, and people don't understand when it comes to their digital rights and their privacy online. They're kind of oblivious, like you said, to how their data is being sold and used in various ways that are not always beneficial. So I know we could talk a whole hour on privacy because it's a great topic, and for anyone
Seriously.
watching, I definitely encourage you to just do a few Google searches about how to protect yourself and your privacy online, because the US, even though we have secular industry specific regulations and laws like HIPAA and other different regulatory laws in the US, we're not as good as, you mentioned, Europe and the UK, they have GDPR and a lot of laws on the books and then you get to like South America, certain South, like Brazil, I think has the most laws on the planet regarding individual
Yes.
privacy. And then I'll give a shout out to Germany. Germany, several like 7 years ago, they had a breakthrough court case where your IP address was considered personal information, which was a groundbreaking case in Europe for that to happen. And that they also the same month ruled that the internet is a basic human right. So two major cases that happened in Germany just a few years ago. But anyhow, not to digress too down the rabbit hole of privacy, but it's a great topic. You sit on several advisory boards as well. Could you maybe talk a little bit about these boards that you serve?
Yes, I love working on boards. It's especially with startup companies and growing companies to see how you progress over time. I talked about how I hate stagnation. But just when you're working on a board, you really get to see how things develop, and you get to see the new ideas, the fresh ideas, and then you have all of these opinions, thought perspectives from various leaders who get to weigh in on their perspective and their vision and how they see this playing out and what we should do now, what we should do later, those kinds of things. So I find, at least if I should say, if it's a strategic advisory board, because all boards are not the same.
Mhm.
But I do enjoy the actual strategic advisory process of the board, to be a part of something that is up and coming. And I mean, even in the last 5 years, you look at companies that started during COVID, and you can see, I mean, some of them have grown extraordinarily in just, the last 5 years, or, 15, 20 years ago. I also work with a non-technical organization that's a 501(c)(3), a charity organization that I work with on their board as well. And very different than our strategic advisory, but I've been a part of that for more than 10 years now, and I've seen them completely grow and evolve to where, it started out, playing music, the well-known music everyone had heard, evolving that way, growing the musicians to now we're sponsoring artists all over the world. We did a tour in Argentina. We go to Mexico. We bring artists. We sponsor artists who are designers, sculptors, as well as painter artists, as well as musicians with new music. So it's been a very rewarding experience, whether it's on the nonprofit side or the for-profit side. But I find it all to be extremely rewarding. And just being a part of that growth process, just the mind being able to imagine and think of what can be, and seeing it grow and develop, and less like raising a child, you
Yeah.
see all the changes and phases that it goes through. And so looking back, it's like, wow, look how far we've come from 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It's pretty amazing.
I love that. You mentioned earlier about 20 years and counting on in your career. If we could go back in a time machine back to day one, when you had decided that technology, cyber IT, all of it was going to be, you were going to go all in and embrace this as your career path. Can you tell us a little bit about that story or what that day that you made that decision was like?
Yes, yes, absolutely. It's a great memory of mine. I remember I was staying in a high rise in downtown San Diego, and I was looking out at the beautiful, amazing skyline that we have here. And you have the ocean in the distance, and just that feeling of like anything's possible. Like look at that, the stretch of the ocean. If you ever get to stare at the ocean, to me, it's one of my favorite things. It's so mighty and beautiful and powerful, and it's like seems never ending. Um, and so I'm looking out at this, and I was kind of toying in my mind on ideas of what I wanted to do, and I thought about technology. More so I thought about hacking is what I was thinking about. But it was kind of the excitement again, that whole mindset of discovery and the unknown and figuring it out that was really driving me. And I just wanted to know, how does it work? And so it was that point that I said, I'm going to start, taking classes and going to school and learn about this profession because it intrigues me. And when something intrigues you and it excites you and gets you going inside, I say you got to listen to the call, because
Yes.
that's what it was for me. I mean, when back then, because that was well over 20 years ago when I was in school, but cybersecurity was not a major. That was not a career path. That was not something people were talking about. And I didn't go to a technical school, but I went to an all women's school actually. And but our brother's school was a technical school, and they weren't even talking about cybersecurity. So
Hmm.
I don't think anyone had it as a major at the time I was in school. It was many years later. So, at that time you could do engineering. I mean, that was kind of your technical fields, industrial engineering, mechanical engineering, structural. So those were the types of engineering that you would get into. There was computer science, of course, but no one was really talking about cybersecurity. That kind of came about more, I'd say 5 years later. And so then at that point, I could look at this and say, I'd studied a lot about the world and globalization and how everything's becoming smaller. And obviously, technology is a big part of that. And so thinking about how I could be a part of that is really how I got into it. But it fed the thirst inside of me to learn, to discover, for things to constantly be on that path of discovery. And it has not proven wrong. It has been everything I set out for it to be.
Awesome. Along that career, were there any people that motivated, inspired you, or maybe mentored you, or other folks in the industry during those years that you looked up to and had some impact for you?
Well, I'd say I didn't have a lot at first. I actually felt rather alone. But with I'm going to encourage the use of LinkedIn because I do not use any other social media platforms other than LinkedIn. I do not subscribe to Twitter or Facebook or anything, literally nothing. I use nothing. But LinkedIn to me has been where I have found so much support in the cybersecurity industry. Like I get so much news, useful information. Like people share on LinkedIn. I mean, share
Yes.
their insights, their experiences. You can reach out and have great conversations with people you may not have even been able to lay eyes on in life. But people are so willing to share. That's what I have found anyway on LinkedIn. And it is a real environment, it's a real community where I have been able to get in front of cybersecurity leaders, people from Department of Defense, people in healthcare, people working, for EPA. I mean, all across the board. Whenever I've needed to reach out to someone to talk about a topic, I have found such willingness, such openness, and easy communication. So, I would highly recommend anyone looking for advisory or just someone to relate to or talk to search out those relationships in LinkedIn. Of course, I have joined groups like WeSys Women in Cybersecurity, which I love. And again, great relationships, great seniors in the community, or should I say trailblazers, who have laid the path for so many of us going to conferences like RSA and meeting with women in those areas and being able to share your story and get feedback or encouragement. Because I mean, I know whether you're male or female, we've all had ups and downs in this industry.
Yeah.
Sometimes it beats you up and knocks you around, and you just feel like a failure. And I don't think anyone that's been in this can say they've never experienced those times, because we all have. You
Yeah.
know, there's so many things we're dealing with for the first time, or it's brand new, or you've tried so hard to solve it or to break it and you can't, and you just feel a little depleted. So it's great to have people you can talk to and share those experiences with, or that can, inspire you with their own experience of feeling that and how they got through it. So those are kind of been my outlets and my areas where I reach out to people and get inspiration and get connection.
I love that thing about connection, and LinkedIn is wonderful for connecting people. Like you said, you can be talking to someone from the other side of the world, from Japan, Singapore to New York to LA, everywhere around the world. You're instantly at your fingertips. You have experts galore, and so much information, good information. One of the organizations you mentioned, I just want to kind of shine a light on this organization. You mentioned WESIS, Women in Cybersecurity, a phenomenal organization. And for those watching, if you haven't seen a few episodes earlier in this season, I had Lynn, who is, I think, the managing director, and she's a phenomenal person, does great work with WeSys. So be sure to check that episode out earlier in this season. Is there any, you mentioned that you do support a nonprofit that's not, that does great work with music and artists and so forth. Is there any other charities or other nonprofits that you're passionate about that you'd like to take a moment to shine a light on and the great work that they do?
Yes, absolutely. Being a woman in a male-dominated industry, I tend to look for opportunities to support women. So, like Girls Who Code, I think it's a great organization. It's a great opportunity to also talk to young girls. Also, being the mother of a daughter, and having grown up, obviously, a girl who grew up into a woman. We have a different experience, I feel like, in the math, science, technology world. I know when I was younger, I was definitely not encouraged to pursue math or science. And it just kind of became one of those things that you just got through, but you didn't expect to actually have a future in it. There wasn't a lot of encouragement or expectation for excellence. And so I've tried to change that with the younger generation coming up, where no, you have every opportunity to learn computer science. These are things very much available to you. So giving young women those opportunities to have experiences will help them embrace a future of technology as they continue to grow. And I think it's important to start young, because these are, these things that we build on in our mind and our brain, these little bitty pieces of information that we continue to build on and develop and grow as we get older. And you can use that information for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah. I mean, and just in season three, we had Dr. Win Masters from MITRE. Again, we Jack Scott was my very first podcast episode in season one. Phenomenal, what I call just titans in cybersecurity. I mean, these women are just brilliant, and
Yes.
they pursued mathematics degrees. They pursued their doctorates, and they just the pursuit of education, right? Education is so
Mhm.
empowering. I was a single parent to two daughters for 17 years of their lives. That's why I have all this white hair on my face. But but as a single parent to two daughters, I created a middle grade young adult book series. It's a fantasy series where I have ancient Greek mathematicians as my wizards, but it's to inspire kids and motivate them to pursue the STEM subjects, particularly mathematics, because we need more mathematicians. Or math is everything when it comes to whether it's IT, cybersecurity, or any industry can benefit from having that knowledge of mathematics. So I'm definitely a huge supporter of the STEM subjects as well. And there was a campaign years ago, I believe by Always, called Like a Girl. Anyone just pull that up on YouTube. It's a powerful message about during puberty, the whole idea of, throw a ball like a girl, run like a girl, how there are different ages, how that transforms from being just, bold and brave and just going full steam to being molded by, our surroundings, our society, and so forth into something that's not what it was meant to be. And so I definitely love the idea of pushing like destroying those glass ceilings and those what word I want to use, those societal constraints that get placed on young ladies that should not get placed, because again, our minds are our only limiter, right? We're only limited by our imagination. So I love that you support women in cybersecurity and also girls who code. In fact, we're going to make sure all of the links for those wonderful nonprofits are going to be in the description below. So don't worry about having to Google. It'll be right down below. If you got a moment, I'd like to do the speed round. It's kind of just for a little bit of levity. We've been talking a lot of tech and cyber. I like to have a little bit of fun with my guests. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask just some rapid fire questions. There's no right or wrong answer. You ready?
Sure.
All right. First one, Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars,
Okay, you didn't seem so confident on that. That's okay. Cake or pie?
pie,
Pie. What kind of pie?
sweet potato pie.
Sweet potato pie. Okay, okay. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No.
No. Okay. And here's a good one. What is your favorite book of all time, and what's the last book you've read?
Oh, favorite book of all time. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna go with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Nice.
It was an extraordinary read, and it's one that I still go back to. So love the adventure and imagination.
Great. And what was the
And most
last book you
recent
read?
book I read was I think it was called Cyber Privacy.
Okay. Hey,
Yeah,
that's
we
like
actually read that in our book club for WESIS, one of our local book clubs. So yes.
okay. All right. Is there any personal projects outside of your day job and the many hats you wear as an advisory board member, et cetera? But is there like a personal project that you're working on that you want to discuss, or blog, or we just shout out your LinkedIn if that's what you want to shout out?
Sure. Personal projects. I feel like I'm always involved in something, but right now, I guess I've just been on a crusade for clean coding and the software development life cycle. So I feel like I've been talking about that a lot lately, but it's just because I get approached by a lot of startups, with questions or just looking at our products and even companies that have been around 5 to 10 years are still pretty much startups. But there's just this constant replication of a lot of the same I'm seeing where people are not including security in their product in the early planning, design, development phases. And there's the later after the fact
Too
appendage of
expensive to
security.
build it after the
Yes.
fact.
And I mean, I cannot encourage people enough. As consumers, we've seen the problems with vendors and supply chain management where all these risks are involved. So every time we use a product, their risk becomes our risk. So I don't have any real initiative or any, horse in this race for SSDLC, but I would encourage anyone who is buying a product. So all of us consumers out there to rethink that process and consider the standards that we are requiring of the companies we're doing business with. Because you've seen the lawsuits, you've seen the damage that these breaches cause, and you don't want to be the next statistic in
Yeah.
that. And you have all the power, all the decision-making power to require these companies to provide you with proper security. And simply having a SOC 2 certification is not going to do it. So make sure you're asking the right questions, requiring the right standards. Always retain your right to audit, to do a pen test. These things are imperative to the security of your organization. So if you're not protecting you and you're not looking out for your best interest, who will?
Well said. Now, our audience is, I like to imagine somebody at some point is watching this video to this point, and wherever path they're in their journey, whether they're mid-career, maybe they've hit the ceiling in their industry and career, maybe they just recently dropped out of college or whatever education program, and they're thinking, well, maybe I hear about there's always openings and jobs and opportunities in cyber. Is this for me? If you're speaking to that person right now, Desiree, what would you tell them, if they're on the fence, they don't know if they want to get their toes in the pool or not. What would you to say to that person?
I would say there are tons of opportunity in cyber, and do not listen to the hype. You always hear people saying, "Oh, there's not, we're lacking in people who are qualified." There are so many qualified professionals out there, so don't listen to that type of noise. But what you do is you focus on improving your knowledge, your education, your technical skills. There are tons of free ways of doing this online. You can find lists and lists of free resources constantly. Hack the box, or I'm not even, there are just so many
Yes.
literally that can get you training. I see these deals pop out all the time, $1 for training courses. It's affordable. It's something accessible to you to hone your skills, to develop your skills. But if you are interested in cybersecurity, it is a future that you can have for the rest of your life. I highly encourage you to pursue it. And I encourage you to ask questions, to look for every opportunity to learn and to grow and develop, because there is just a ton of opportunity and it will not stop. As I've said throughout this discussion, it's constantly changing, constantly growing, and there is room for more. So we have space for you. Get on board, talk
I
to
love that.
mentors, join groups, look for, your local B-sides or WESIS or any other group. There are so many local groups, ISACA, I mean, everything that you can become a part of to learn and look for opportunities. SANS offers even free education. I mean, there's just so many, but
Yeah.
there's tons of opportunity here. And cybersecurity is so broad. There is something for everyone. So it doesn't matter whether you want to go into networking, into actual development, and software development. I mean, anything. There's just so many areas that you can work on, the cloud, the blockchain. I mean, it's unlimited. You can learn so much and you can continue to grow.
I love that. Well, Desiree, it's been an honor having you on the Top Cyber Pro podcast. Again, folks, multi-domain expert, wears a lot of hats, and just a brilliant titan. Just like I mentioned, when Dr. Masters of War, Desiree is another titan in industry, and I really appreciate your time today on the podcast. So we will have her LinkedIn profile link in the description below, and any of the other links. Desiree, feel free to send me any links that you want me to include below. But please just jump in the pool. The water is warm, and the industry needs you. Every industry needs cybersecurity to varying degrees and so many positions. As you said, it's limitless. So yeah. So thank you so much, Desiree.
Yes, thank you.